So we didn't upload an episode last week, did we?
No, because we were on holiday in Northern Ireland.
Yes, we stayed at Castle Rock, right on the north coast. The Atlantic waves coming in. It was lovely, wasn't it?
It was, and not that far from Giant's Causeway.
That's right. And we had a trip into Derry, which was splendid, and then a weekend in Belfast, staying with our friend. She was away. We were just looking after a house for her.
And her dog.
Yes.
Her dog, Hera. Hera the dog.
Absolutely, yeah. It's splendid old Wendy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was lovely. So it meant we didn't do any podcasts or uploading anything.
But made up for it. Interesting one coming up with Keith.
Yes, Keith. Yeah.
So in this episode, talking to Keith Wilson.
I never knew his surname.
Did you not?
No. I just always knew him as Keith from Tree Responsibility, which is part of what he's done.
Only a part of what he's done.
I know. There's a lot more. He likes it's solid stuff with him, isn't it? He likes, like you said, wood and stone and metal in terms of music. So they're all those kind of solid elements, aren't they?
That's right. And he was involved in the Red Bricks, where our girls used to live.
Yes, in Hume, yeah.
That's in Leaf Street, which I think is the one some of them renamed Let's Be Avenue.
Yes, that's right, yeah. I think it's a proper road sign, isn't it? Let's Be Avenue. Yeah, I thought maybe the police station had been there, but yeah. So he's lovely, and he moved to Hebden Bridge about 2 years after us, and then to Cornholme probably about 2 years before we moved to Todd. I don't know how long he's been there.
Yeah. So, and him and Gemma, really practical, skilled people.
Yes, a plasterer and a wood, stone,
metal guy.
Metal guy, yeah. Yeah.
Right, so, let's have a listen to what he has to say for himself.
Okay.
Sitting in our kitchen with Keith Wilson, who I've known for years through your time with Tree Responsibility. And now I see you cycling past me many mornings to go off and do some hard labour.
Yeah, I seem to be a sucker for hard labour.
yeah. So when you cycle past me in the mornings, what kind of work are you doing?
Yeah. So in the summertime, I tend to be putting stones on top of other stones. I like to describe it that way. But it's not random. I'm a dry stone waller. I get quite a lot of work in people's gardens, building retaining walls and stone flights of steps and stone seats and what have you. And you can see an example of my work in the Fox and Goose beer garden.
Oh, right. You've done that.
Not all of it, but the latest bit, which is a few years old now, there's like a curved stone seat with some little shelves in the wall, big retaining wall there. And that was that was a bit of annoying. It was due to be the grand opening. And then
of the co-op
version of it. Of the new extension to the garden.
Right, sorry.
And then COVID kicked in. So nobody saw it for 2 years, so it just sat there gathering dust. So it didn't quite get the grand launch I was hoping for.
But well used.
Yeah, it's well used. Yeah, and it's a great advert. You know, it's brought loads of work in. Since that, people have seen it and gone, "Oh, you did that? Oh, can you come and look at our garden?" And
that's the best sort of promotion, isn't it?
Word of mouth.
You can actually see, look at that.
Yeah.
That's what I done that.
Yeah.
Oh, that my mate Keith did that.
Yeah.
Right.
No, and it was really cool project. Got to hang out in the Fox and Goose all day. You know,
they're the worst places to work, aren't they?
Worst places to work.
Yeah. Because it's a great pub anyway.
Yeah, because often I'm just on my own somewhere, you know, like maybe the client will be in, but not always. Or if I'm doing boundary walls, fields, I won't see a soul all day, you know, it's just me and the cows or whatever. So,
So you work all over the valley or further afield?
I try and keep it as local as possible because I don't drive. Partly because I never learned. It's partly political choice as well. So if I can't get there on my bicycle or with a bus or some combination of trains and bikes, whatever, I tend not to do it. Although I am working in Cumbria next week. So I got that job through my partner Gemma, who's a plasterer, and I went and did some labouring for her. And then I wasn't needed the whole time, and the client had some old stone steps leading up to a door, and they weren't safe at all. So you wanted them like taking down and rebuilding. So I'm in the middle of rebuilding that. And Gemma's finished all her work now, so I'm just going to go up on my own and finish it off. Be another 3 or 4 days up there.
Nice. So you're very practical and skilled, the pair of you.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, we have a few strings to our bows. Yeah,
that's good. Dry stone walling's always intrigued me. Because I was brought up in massive council estates in Liverpool, and sort of, when I got to sort of live out in the countryside, and realised how old some of these walls are.
Right. Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
And then again, brought up in council estate land. All the bricks have mortar between them, and then you find out there's like really quite fantastic walls. Are literally dry.
Yeah.
So how did you learn how to do that?
So I learned one summer. I was working with Brian Green, and Brian has he told me he taught himself while living in Wales, and he had loads of work on one summer, and we knew each other a bit, and we had mutual friends, and it was through Bear he recommended me, and so I ended up labouring for Brian, and we did some fantastic work that year actually. Like a huge retaining wall was my first project with him, and then later on some steps. I think we did a couple of flights of steps. We did patios, basically all the aspects, pretty much everything you can do with walls. I got to do with Brian that year, and he's really good at it. Yeah. Like people say you can tell who built what walls, and it's a myth. You can't, but you can tell if it's been done by a good waller.
Yes.
And Brian's walls, the ones that I know that he did, I'm like, yeah, that's got Brian all over it. So he was a brilliant teacher and a lot of fun to work with as well.
He's a lot of fun anyway, Brian.
We were always singing and laughing, and and he doesn't take anything too seriously. Brian, he's a very, how would you describe it? He's quite a unique character.
He is. Well, he's an elf.
He's an elf. Yeah, he's not of this world, really. And he takes everything in his stride.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what, some of the practices which I continue to this day, thanks to Brian. So you get to the job. Actually, some of it I don't do. I'm not going to mention that. But we'd start the day. He says it's just eyeballing, and you just look at everything, and you don't think, oh, that stone's going to go there, or I need to do this, I need to do that. You just literally look at everything for 5 minutes, and then we'd do 5 or 10 minutes of Tai Chi, and we haven't even picked up a stone yet. We've been there for 20 minutes, but then you're ready for it because your body's warmed up. You've just tried to empty your mind, and you just try and get into the zone of not thinking about it too much. And he would say, the stones tell you where they want to go. And I don't believe that the stones can communicate with you, not as esoteric as Brian, but I do think there's something in that, just kind of a subconscious awareness of space means that you can see which ones are going to go before they've gone. Before you even pick it up, that's not going to fit there. So when I work with other people, and there'll be, we need the last stone to finish this course, whoever I'm working with, they might pick one up and try it, and I can see it's not going to work. I don't stop them. I let them try and fail.
But that's a learning experience for the other people, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is why you've learned that from Brian.
Exactly, and I've learned from failing as well. It's like you try things and you learn from your mistakes, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, and it's also it's a normal thing. Whatever your job is, you've got to get yourself into your job.
Yeah. I forget, and I think this happens to other people as well. You forget how good you are at something if you do it all the time. and then until someone comes along to lend a hand, and you're like, oh no, not like that. Because you just take for granted what you do, you know, and you just don't think. And then it's really nice when people see your work or see you working and go, oh yeah, that's gives you some kind of validation and reminder that no, you are unique. You do have some talent.
Yes, but yes, well, I understand that completely.
But the great thing about walls, though, and the jobs that I get, not always, but I often get to express. I get to do something creative. Like the client will be just, they might not necessarily know what they want. They might have an idea, and they'll just kind of, but can you just make something happen, you know? And then when you work with the stones, rather than trying to prescribe something, like I might have an idea, but then it'll just turn out a little bit different because I haven't got the stones to do that, but I've got them to do this, you know, and corners become curves or vice versa, or
it's a,
you know,
yeah,
suddenly there's like a little step where you didn't think that was going to happen, and
yeah, I understand that, and I've seen that just messing about in our own sort of front garden, which is, as you've seen, it's very small. There's different types of design. One is, you know, we're going to get a piece of paper and I'm going to draw it out and we're going to build that, and that never happens. I mean, I when I left school, I was in engineering, structural engineering, seeing lots of fantastic drawings by architects, and then somebody else has to come along and say, well, actually,
you can't do that.
That won't work. That's a nice picture. This might have to happen. And then,
absolutely,
and all these different experts sort of, you know, feed into each other. And, and then there's the other thing, which is the more sort of ongoing design. Yeah, I've got an idea about what I want. Or the client says to you, got an idea about what I want.
Yeah.
Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, and you make a start and then you might have to tweak something. Or, yeah. I often wonder, though, about there's some amazing stonework around here, and not just dry stonework, all the engineering for the railways, for example, and the canals. And I'm looking at these enormous blocks. I don't even know how they moved it, let alone cut it to that specification to make, you know, an arch that's spanning 15 meters or something.
Yeah.
And it's just like astonishes me how did the architect communicate to the quarry that this was the piece they needed, or did they make them on site, or how did they, you know, because some of them, they're not only like well engineered, they're ornate as well.
Oh, yes.
And you'll get like ridges that meet up with the next stone, and it's crazy stuff.
Well, sometimes it's the skill of the masons.
Yeah,
I think as well.
And I wonder if they were cursing the architects. Oh, that's not going to work. We need to do it like this. Don't tell them. Don't tell
everyone curses the architect.
Don't tell Isambard. We're just going to treat this little bit.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone curses the architect, and then they curse him again when they think, I've made that work, and then the bleeding architect's got the award for it. Oh yes, I was brought up on that when I was working in engineering firms, and I was like 16 and onwards. Yeah, very, very much so. So I mean, there's quite a lot of your work around the valley then, besides.
There's bits and bobs of it. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't know if I didn't point to it.
No, but you can walk or cycle around and.
Yeah, Gemma's sick of it. It's like, I helped plant those trees. And it's like, oh yeah, I built that wall.
Yeah. Well, talking about trees, tell us about tree responsibility. You worked with the fantastic Dongria Carns.
Oh yeah, Dongria Cond. So just before I moved to Hebden, I got involved in a community garden project in Manchester, in Hume, where I was living.
Was that on the red bricks?
It was on the red bricks, yeah. It's called Leaf Street Community Garden, and it's there to this day.
I know it well.
Do you? Oh, right, okay.
Well, I've got two daughters, and they both at different times lived either side of Leaf Street.
Right, okay. Brilliant. That was an amazing project. It was basically a strip of ground between two rows of council flats. Not very tall. They're only 3 stories high, but they're very long rows. And it used to be a road. It used to be Leaf Street. And then at some point the council, they turfed it over, and then the dogs sat on it and the junkies left their needles on it, and it wasn't really a particularly nice place. But a bunch of us, led by this superb woman called Jenny, created the community garden, and we did like loads of consultation. It's like, what would you like to see in this space? And we got, you know, loads of people involved, and we had a botanist on board who was just amazing, and we had just loads of creative people who were green fingered, and we designed and made this garden after negotiating with the council for ages. They weren't really into it to begin with, and then 5 years later they were very proud of it, you know, and it's like, yeah, well, whatever.
What we just said about the architects.
And so anyway, I can remember planting my first tree. It was an apple tree, and just having this sense of like what an important thing that was to do, and like the you know, it might live longer than me, and it's going to produce food, and it just felt like why I want to do more of this. This feels really good. So when I moved to Hebden Bridge a little bit later, and there was this tree planting group already. Well, they'd been up and running for a year or so, and I just volunteered with those, and got involved in reforesting Calderdale.
And there's loads of examples of
we did
areas of the valley that have been planted.
We did so much. So I was volunteering for years, and then eventually they, Dongria and Nagakushila, who were called Penny and Billy at the time, invited me to join, you know, and I became one of the core crew for a good long while, and coordinating volunteers, and we planted thousands and thousands and thousands of trees. And like the main focus of tree responsibility was climate action. Because the trees, obviously, they absorb CO2, but they also slow the rain. Basically, they absorb water, so it stops. So when it does flood, it doesn't flood as bad if you plant loads of trees.
Which is important in a steep-sided valley like this.
Yeah. I used to just be able to have the spiel of like, well, it's been a while, but it's you've got soil erosion. You know, it stops soil erosion. It builds soil. It slows the flow. That's the big phrase these days. There's a group called Slow the Flow now who are doing loads of great work. And then you've got like future fuel in the form of firewood. You've got future food, so you can cut down your food miles and your fuel miles by sourcing all that locally. And it creates habitat. That was a contentious one for some people because sometimes, you know, it's like, oh, we can't plant here because there's some special mushrooms or special birds or whatever using that site. But, you know, it's not a very wooded place, this valley.
No.
If you just visit, you think it is because all the steep-sided slopes have got trees on them, but you just need to get up onto the tops and there's very little going on.
Yeah, I don't know if the tops ever was wooded. I mean, I just don't know. There's always been just more land.
Yeah, I think it's not always been moorland. That's a result of deforestation, I think. So yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure it would have been cleared by humans. Through working with Dongria and Nagakushila, we were also doing coppicing, and they introduced me to this traditional woodland management, cutting trees down and letting them grow and harvesting the poles that grow back. That was a very important realization for me that that's a thing you can do, because part of what I do now, apart from the walls, I also still work with trees, including coppicing, which I absolutely love, and that's where I feel most at home.
Really?
Is out in the woods, cutting down trees. I've planted more than I've cut down by a factor of about 1,000.
I know people think tree responsibility is just about planting trees.
Yeah, but
it's about sort of countryside management.
It's in particular woodland management. You know, it's like you know, let's just look around you. What's made out of wood? You know, and where's that wood come from? Like we use wood all the time, and we need to use wood, and we should be sourcing it locally.
Yes,
you know. So after tree responsibility, or rather just before I left tree responsibility, some other friends of mine, Howell and Nora, formed a woodland management group called Black Bark.
Oh, right.
That was a workers' co-op trying to promote woodland management in Calderdale and further afield. And that lasted for about 5 years. And it was Howell's also a dry stone waller, so it was through that I realised that I wanted to do more walling. and through that, it's kind of I could realise my ambition of taking coppicing a step further than I was.
One more thing I want to talk to you about: festivals.
Oh, yeah.
We've worked together at Knockengorrick
Yeah.
several times, and I mean, you work at others. You go to other festivals
So
as well.
I used to, not so much these days. I'm getting a bit too old for staying up for a weekend. But I do love. I'm a huge music fan. I love music, and so there's a couple of festivals that I'm regular at. So one is Knockengorrick, as well. You know, we work together there. I'm one of the stagehands for the Bow Air stage, which is the cushiest job in the world. I really love it. I'm very pleased to get invited back year after year.
And hopefully we'll both be there next May.
Yeah, it's my intention to be there. And then, I like metal music as well. So I've just come back from the 10th Arctangent gathering, which is not everyone's cup of tea. It's very noisy. But,
yes, very different from Knockengorrick.
Yeah, it is. There's never any metal at Knock.
No.
Well, interestingly, though, the reason I go to Arctangent is because I met a lass wearing a Pantera t-shirt at Knockengorrick.
Right.
And she was like, I'm not going to try and do a Glaswegian accent, but you've got to go to Arctangent. You've got to go to Arctangent. You'd love it. And she was right. I've been every year since.
Okay. So, thanks for that. It was really interesting. I shall continue to see you cycling up and down the valley.
Yeah.
So long as the weather's okay. 'Cause you work must be heavily influenced by what the weather's like.
I do get days off because it's too wet to work. It's not safe. But that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't really want to be doing 5 days a week anyway, really.
A sensible attitude.
Yeah. I'd like to branch out into teaching a bit more. And also it makes it more affordable for some of the clients as well. I've just been offered this job in Hebden, a retaining wall, and she can't really afford it this year, but I could really do with the work. So I'm thinking, maybe we can run it as a course.
Right.
So I'm going to get in, I'm going to see if I can promote it myself, and if not, I'm going to see if Todd College can help me with that.
That's a really good idea. I've been involved in that sort of thing a few times.
I know they have done walling courses. Interestingly, I was fixing a farm wall, and unbeknownst to me, Todd College had organised a course on this, just like on the next wall along. So I shared my dinner with all these students. It's like, oh, right, okay. Why are you here then? I've got 100 metres of wall to build. Okay, well, you're going to learn that it's hard work. If you need a waller, here's my number.
No, I was involved with Community Technical Aid years ago in Manchester, which was about, whether it's buildings or community gardens or whatever, it's about getting communities involved in their own solutions, their own issues. And one of the big ones we got was the Manchester Environmental Resource Centre Initiative.
Oh, Murky, I remember them.
And I mean, we've got loads and loads of European money to sort of convert an old warehouse or mill. I can't remember what the original use of the building was. And again, as part of that, given the sort of the nature of the organisation and the education that was going to go on in it, they didn't just want traditional brick walls inside and things. So we've got some of the dividing walls were done as a result of straw bale building courses.
Right, yeah, fantastic.
And then sort of natural lime plastering. And there was money, European money, for what was called women returners at the time. Right. Basically, sort of, women off the local council estate, whether they'd worked or not, they'd had some children. The children had sort of got to school. They didn't, they weren't sort of full-time parents anymore, if that's an appropriate term. So they were retraining for work. So they were sort of, building the walls and plastering the walls.
I remember
natural methods.
I was living in Manchester when that was happening. I remember all that going on.
And it's fantastic, and everybody learns something, you know. And once you learn plastering, you know, you may or may not use all the natural sort of materials afterwards, but you know, you can go plastering elsewhere. It's about giving people skills, which is really great.
Yeah, well, that's what my partner Gemma does. She's a lime plasterer, but she also works with clay. And she's been running courses in our house. So we've had...
Oh, you've got a very well plastered house then.
Well, students, you know, they're not necessarily the best plasterers. So some of it has to be done again. Yeah. But you've got to learn somewhere, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so... No, lime's amazing. You should get Gemma on, actually.
Yeah.
Because I've learned a lot about lime from being with her. And
we shall talk to Gemma at some stage in the future. But for now, Keith Wilson, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.
Really
good to see you.
And I'll put the kettle on again if you want to know.
Yeah, no more coffee though, I think.